Hey, how you doing? How is everybody today? So, my name is Elan Adler. I'm sitting here in Efrat, a beautiful community here in the Judean hills of Israel. And this is my first time ever on Facebook Live. I don't even know where I'm supposed to look. So I'm going to look all over the room and try to focus. I don't know who's on, but very, very happy to have you join us today. And we're going to be talking about Rabbi Soloveitchik's wonderful teachings about the Haggadah, the Passover Haggadah. And I hope you'll enjoy it. People have asked me, okay, nobody asked me, how long is this going to be? And the bottom line is, I think it'll be about 45 minutes, give or take. Hopefully I'll give, and hopefully there'll be people to take. So, Rabbi Soloveitchik was one of the premier Talmud teachers, rabbis, intellects of the previous generation. He died about 27 years ago. Next Sunday will be the 27th anniversary of his passing. And the reason that I'm drawn to his teachings, I was never in his Talmud class at Yeshiva University, but during the early 1980s, I was privileged to be one of several aides, A-I-D-E-S, several aides to him as he was getting on in years. And there was a group of people that would help him to negotiate various things, go back and forth to his Talmud class, etc. So I did that for 2 years, spent about 10 hours a week with him. And that's why I'm drawn to him and drawn to his teaching. So tonight will be about Rabbi Soloveitchik's teachings in the Haggadah. And then next week, God willing, at about the same time, I'm going to be teaching about some anecdotes of personal things about myself and Rabbi Soloveitchik, things I learned from him, various episodes that we did together. And I hope you'll enjoy that. So I promised myself I'm not going to go into a long intro. So let's jump into Rabbi Soloveitchik's teachings about the Haggadah. Okay, so everybody ready? Because I have not done this often, it's the first time, I don't really know who's in. I don't see anybody's comments, so maybe next time I'll know exactly what to do better. But right now, I'm pretty much talking to myself. And, well, I agree with myself pretty often, so that's working out really well. If you're watching, by the way, from any of my former communities in Stamford, Connecticut, or maybe in Baltimore, Maryland, a couple of places there. Wherever you're watching, I'm glad you're with us. So the first thing I want to do, again, these are all according to the teachings of Rabbi Soloveitchik of blessed memory. Again, next Sunday is the 27th anniversary of his passing, and we're going to learn some things right now about his teaching. So the first teaching he has is about a kittel. So the kittel is a long white kind of robe that many men wear on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And many men have the custom, or whoever leads the Seder, I guess, have a custom of wearing this whitish kind of a robe. I know I've worn it all the time. My father of blessed memory wore it all the time. And so he discusses this idea of wearing the kittel, which frankly I thought was universal amongst Jewish men, that they wear the kittel if they're leading the Seder. So today I posted something on a Facebook page asking how many men actually wear this, and if the Seder is led by a woman, do women actually wear a kittel? One of the most surprising responses I got was most people that responded, and there were many, not many, some, a lot. Okay, 4. No, there were many who responded and they said, hey, I never wore one. Wow, it was very surprising to me. Anyway, so Rabbi Soloveitchik wants to know about this kittel. He says that the kittel, I'm sorry, I should have brought it for you to show you what it looks like, but if you've ever been to the synagogue on the high holidays, you see many of the rabbis, cantors wear them, the leaders of the prayers wear them. So he wants to know, he says, very often when we think of this kittel, especially on the high holidays, it reminds us of what he calls bigdei metim, which is, this is the apparel of the dead. Because, according to Jewish custom and tradition, Jewish people are buried in shrouds, white shrouds. So this kind of a garment reminds us of a death ritual, And what's that doing at the Seder? He wants to know. So a great rabbi called the Nitziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Berlin, he said that's not the part that we ought to look at, that it could be looking like a shroud, but the part that we need to look at is the fact that the Passover sacrifice, the Korban Pesach, that was done during the days of the Holy Temple, that, he said, should be eaten with awe and trepidation. Awe and trepidation. That is not a law firm. That is a frame of mind, that we should be eating the meal, the Seder meal. And he says that part of the awe and trepidation is to wear bigadim chashuvim, which means important or distinguished clothing. And Rabbi Soloveitchik agrees with that, and he says, yes, so the Kittel is a kind of distinguished clothing that ought to be worn by at least somebody, preferably the leader, to kind of highlight the importance of the evening. And that's a very, very lovely teaching. So he also says that this Kittel, this white garment, is a Zecher LeMikdash, which means it's a remembrance. It takes us back to the days of the Holy Temple. Some would say it makes us long for the Holy Temple, which we hope will be built speedily in our day without the Arabs clobbering us. That would be a very nice thing too. So Rabbi Soloveitchik says that the outcome of all this is that really all the participants at a Seder ought to be wearing a Kittel. How do you like that? Did you ever know that? I didn't know that. Except he says our custom nowadays is not to do so. And he says it's preferable for the leader of the Seder to wear a Kittel. So, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, of blessed memory, who died right before Purim in 1986, he says, why do we wear this white garment? We wear it so that the children will ask. And if only one person wears the Kittel at the Seder, the children will ask, because if everybody's wearing it, well, they might ask anyway, why are we wearing these white robes? But if only one out of the whole gang wears this Kittel, it's more likely that the kids will ask the question and be curious and inquisitive, as we expect them to be about everything that goes on during the Seder. So that's a little something about the Kittel. Again, I've always worn it. My father of blessed memory always wore it. And again, I was surprised to see that many men don't wear it. They never did, and they don't anticipate in doing so either. So next part of Rabbi Soloveitchik's teachings is about the leaning, which we call kulanu misubin. Halayla hazeh, kulanu misubin. Tonight, everybody's leaning. I'm not talking politics. I decided I'm not going to talk about politics in this shiur, in this lecture, because it doesn't really belong, although I see some names of people who have showed up, and I appreciate Donald Trump tuning in. It was not expected, but that's great. Anyway, what does he teach? What does Rabbi Soloveitchik teach about leaning? He said when we lean, it's a way of showing our freedom. So we lean, some people recline. I'm going to recline right now, maybe disappear from the entire screen here, but we recline as a symbol of freedom. Usually when we're in front of people of authority, like a principal, a rabbi, most people sit very, very rigid, and they sit very, very stoic, and they don't know what to move and how to move. But when you're free with somebody, you behave in a free way. And so Rabbi Soloveitchik, as many do, he teaches that this is all about a posture of freedom. But he's going to say something that I found very, very surprising the first time I learned it. He says, first of all, in the Talmud and Tractate Pesachim, there's a discussion whether only the first two cups of the four need to be leaning, or maybe it's only the last two cups. Bottom line is, we say that all the four cups should be done when we lean. When we lean to the left, usually it's a leaning to the left. So what Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches, and this is a surprise, you may be surprised, I was, he says that if you lean to the left, but there's nothing that you're leaning on, it's not an effective leaning. Means from the point of view of custom, maybe even halakha, I'm not sure, if you leaned, but you didn't lean on anything, in other words, you're just leaning like that, you can't see the rest of me, which be blessed that you can't. If you're leaning, you should be leaning on something. And it says further in the Talmud, the Tractate Pesachim, It says there that people leaned on people right next to them. So that kind of conforms to Rabbi Soloveitchik's preference that you lean on something. Lean on me. Just trying to think, some songwriter passed away today. Was it the songwriter of that song, Lean on Me? I forget. Anyway, so that's what they used to do. They used to lean on each other when they leaned to the left. Nowadays, people take pillows and all kinds of things that they put near them at their side, and that's a very nice thing to do. What Rabbi Soloveitchik suggests is that you take your chair, okay, and you turn it a quarter way. You turn it a quarter way so that when you lean, you're actually leaning on the side of the chair. Isn't that interesting? So that's his best advice. Take your chair. I guess at the beginning, you're going to do that every time you have a cup. Maybe you do. I don't know. But he says you take your chair, turn it to the side. If there's a backing to the chair, if you're sitting on a stool, that's, and they say in Spanish, that's a halbatzara. Good luck with that. But if you have a chair with a backing, you turn it a quarter so that when you lean, you're actually leaning on the chair. And he says that's the most effective thing to do. So now we come to an excerpt from Rabbi Soloveitchik's Haggadah, which is called The Exalted Evening. Beautiful, beautiful. It came out, I don't know when, but here's what I wanted to read for you, which is all about this piece called Ha-Lachma Anya. Ha-Lachma Anya, which sounds like if you put matzah all over somebody, it's Anya, but it's not that. It's Aramaic. Ha-Lachma Anya, which means at a certain point in the early part of the Seder, we lift the bread, we lift the matzah, and we say, this is the bread of affliction. And if you've had many Passover seasons, you know exactly what I mean. This is the bread of affliction. Some people call it the dread of affliction. Matzah has its way, and we hope it makes its way. But this is the idea of the matzah. So we say, Ha-Lachma Anya, this is the bread of affliction. This is the bread of poverty. This is the bread of poverty. So a lot of people explain, what does it mean it's the bread of poverty? It means that when Jewish people, when they were enslaved, well, they didn't have like 9-course banquets every meal. You know, they were thrown a this or they were given a that and go eat that for the day. So what do you do if you don't have access to food and if you're enslaved or imprisoned? You only eat what's given you. So if you're given a small piece, you probably cut it into small pieces and you eat it every few minutes, every hour, whatever it is. But the way we've learned Ha-Lachma Anya, this is the bread of affliction, this is the bread of poverty, we've always learned it that this is something that we do for ourselves. This is how we as slaves fed ourselves, taking whatever we got and cutting it into small pieces for ourselves, okay? So this is Rabbi Soloveitchik's teaching, and it widens this whole idea to a point that is really, really beautiful. He says, therefore, on Passover, we sit down to read the Haggadah, and we say, this is the poor bread of our forefathers that they ate in Egypt, of our ancestors. Let those who are hungry enter and eat. Let those who are in need come and celebrate Passover. I just want to pause for a second because today I saw a response from Rabbi Herschel Schachter, who is the Rosh Yeshiva at Yeshiva University, the great mind, the great intellect, the great authority of Yeshiva University. And he said, you know, this line that we say, all who are hungry come and eat. Do we say that this year? Because we're not opening up the door for anybody. We're hoping nobody comes to eat. Whoever is there is going to be there, and there's no additions. So he asked the question, should we say that phrase in the Haggadah this year? Anyway, he concluded that we should for various reasons, but I thought it was an interesting discussion. Anyway, so Rabbi Soloveitchik says, I interpret in the land of Egypt as referring to the period that they were slaves. They not only ate this bread, which we know, but they shared it with each other. How do you like that? One had a matzah, while the other had none. The former split the matzah into two and passed half of it to his unfortunate brother or sister. You know, I like that teaching because it tells us that it wasn't just a selfish act of, let me take whatever I got, I'm going to cut it into pieces, all for me. No, Rabbi Soloveitchik imagined that the people of the time when they were enslaved, even though they had probably the most meager of all kinds of food and sustenance, they shared it with each other, which is very beautiful. So it takes me back to a movie. I don't remember the title, The Pianist. I really don't remember. It's a Holocaust-related movie. Bunches of families are waiting around for the train to come and take them to hell, wherever it was. And I remember the scene where a bunch of kids are sitting around the parents. The father can see that the children are very, very hungry, haven't eaten for a long time. So what does he do? He remembers that he has a piece of candy, like a toffee. He has a piece of toffee in his pocket. The camera goes tight on as he is unwrapping the toffee. And he takes out like a little pocket knife or something. And the toffee, how big could it be? I mean, it's a nothing. Like the kind they give it on Shabbat in the synagogues. You know, here's a little candy, take that, take that. So the camera goes tight on the father unwrapping the candy and with the pocket knife cuts it into as many pieces as there are children. And he gives them this tiny, tiny morsel. But, you know, it makes them happy. It's not likely to make them satiated in any way, but that's what I think of when I read this commentary by Rabbi Soloveitchik. Oh, we think that it's a poor man's bread and they just kept it to themselves? No. He teaches that they gave it to each other. Those who had some gave it to the ones who had none. And to me, that's a very, very beautiful thing. Listen, in today's coronavirus environment, we are blessed with people who do all kinds of favors and all kinds of kindnesses to other people. They are the ones who are, God willing, healthy. They're youngish. They feel they can go out and shop for other people without getting harmed. And they bring it to the people who need it. Medications, foods, all kinds of things. So I think of that, and even though we are impoverished today, in the sense that many of us don't have the health that we would like. We're impoverished in the sense that we can't go out and see people and we can't interact and we're in social isolation. It's a beautiful thing that people think outside of, not just outside of the box, outside of their box. People think outside of their own box and wonder who can they help with this or with that. So that's what I think of when Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches that they gave pieces to each other and didn't just hoard them like toilet paper. Okay, so let's go to this teaching. I'm going to shorten it a little bit because there's a few other things. I don't want to take up a whole lot of your time. Whoever's on, I appreciate it, and it's wonderful. By the way, if my sister Susan is still on, happy birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday tomorrow, and we wish you all the best on your birthday tomorrow, April 6th, the big day. So this next teaching is going to be upon what we say, that even though all of us were smart, all of us were bright, all of us know the story, around the Seder table, we need to delve into the story of Pesach. We need to delve into the story of the slavery, the freedom, God's promises, the Exodus, etc. We need to delve into it. And then it says in the Haggadah, V'chol hamarbeh l'saper b'yetziat Mitzrayim, all those who increase and delve into the story of the Exodus from Egypt, Harei ze meshubach. Harry is in a shoebox. That's not what it means at all. Harei ze meshubach. The more you delve into it, the more you are praiseworthy. The more you are praiseworthy. So we are blessed, thank God, in our family to have had Seders that went for a long, long time, deep into the night, like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I'm kidding. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Was it all storytelling? Well, it was a meal, good meal, schmooze, but a lot of it was storytelling, thank God. So this is the Haggadah's teaching. And those who increase and delve into the story, they are worthy to be praised. That's the idea. So Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches, and you're going to ask me the question, how do you do it all in one night? Especially here in Israel. Outside of Israel, people have 2 nights. If you don't do it all this night, tomorrow night we'll get my mother. She should rest in peace. Anytime we got bogged down in like grammatical discussions or other kinds of what she would think of as not that pertinent, you know, she would say, why don't we save this for tomorrow night? And that's what we did, you know. We saved it for the next night. But here in Israel, there's a lot to do in one night. There's a lot to pass over. No pun intended. Yes. There's a lot to give to the children, the grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Even if you're going to be by yourself, there's a lot to teach yourself that you didn't know. Get a new Haggadah that you never saw. Look through that. Read through that. Follow the commentaries. Couples are going to be together. My wife and I, God willing, we're going to be by ourselves. Never happened before. So it's not that easy, but especially in Israel, to do it all in one night, that's a tall order, I think. Anyway, here's Rabbi Soloveitchik's teaching on, and all who increase in the storytelling of the Exodus, they are worthy to be praised. So Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches that how do you teach this? How do you teach all of this? He has 6 requirements, okay? I'm just going to breeze through them. 6 requirements on how to appropriately delve and mine the story of Passover, okay? I don't think anybody's going to take notes on this, but I just want you to know that Rabbi Soloveitchik takes this evening very, very seriously because he calls it an exalted evening. Some people may call it an exhausted evening, but he calls it exalted, okay? So here's what he says. There are 6 requirements, right? All in one night here in Israel. Good luck. One requirement is just to read. Read the story, recite it without any big elaboration. Okay, minimal. The next part is to go beyond just reading it and become students of the text. Probe and interpret the various phrases, the various stories, the various episodes. So don't just read it. That's minimal. Now you have to go a little bit beyond that reading and become a student of it. And the third step, he says, go beyond the reading and beyond being a student of it. Now you have to become a teacher of it. You also have to become a teacher of it. Take it in for yourself and also teach it to the other people around your Seder table. Teach it for the next generation so that they should know what the story is about and how it applies to us even today. Okay? The next part, he talks about verbal teaching methodology. He's written in other books pages and pages about that it's important to ask questions. Ask. People should respond. Stimulate curiosity. Some people put little questions in an envelope and they tape it around the room. And when things get to a lull, like the first 4 minutes of the Seder, they'll say, okay, who wants to take envelope number 1? And let's see what that discussion is. Who wants to get envelope number 5? And let's see what's in there. Questions. I remember once in my congregation at Moses Montefiore, if anybody's watching it in Baltimore, on Shiamuna, every year right before the high holidays, I would wish them a year of something, a year of health, a year of study, a year of whatever. One year I said, I wish you a year of curiosity. That's where learning begins. To be curious, to be inquisitive, to wonder, to want to know, to go, why is that? So that's the fourth part of Rabbi Soloveitchik's 4 requirements. 4 of the 6 requirements is there should be a verbal teaching methodology. The 5th one is audiovisual, to make the table as rich as possible so that people will inquire, what is this? What is that? We want to become emotionally attached, says Rabbi Soloveitchik, to all of the various things on the table. So we see maror, we see a bitter root, we see bitter herbs. It's hard to get excited about that. But if you go around the table and ask the people, can you name a time in our history where we not only ate bitter herbs, but we lived bitter herbs? Can anybody do that? That makes it very, very personal. When I look at this sprig of something green, I guess we think of spring because Passover, Pesach, must be a springtime holiday. What do you think of when you see this beautiful greenery? So Rabbi Soloveitchik says number 5 is audio-visual, looking at things, interpreting things, showing them, lifting them. Here it is. Here's what it looks like. Maybe even passing it around for people to feel it. Usually the Seder plate sits kind of dead in the middle of a table. Or if you have a lot of company, which is not likely this year, maybe every two for 14 people, 2 Seder plates. But you have to admit, it kind of sits there. And maybe there's a point to be made to pass the plate, pass things around, touch it, feel it, be intimate with it in a spiritual sense. Get to know it. Don't just look at it, but touch it and be involved with it. And the 6th level of how to have the Seder is praise, acknowledgement, what we would normally, beyond what we would normally do. Acknowledge Hashem, acknowledge God, acknowledge the good things that we have in our lives. You know, today with this coronavirus, it's so easy to focus on what we lack, and we lose sight of what we have. So my wife Rivka, my dear wife Rivka, has just written a book all about gratitude. I don't have the exact title, but it's all about gratitude. Each and every day, even the Talmud teaches, we should try to have 100 blessings a day. 100 times where we recognize the blessings, the great things that God has done for us, even when we lack a lot of things. So this is Rabbi Soloveitchik. He says, this is what we need to do. And again, tough for only one night here in Israel to get all of that done. But he says that's the idea. And I highlighted some words here that he wants us to expand, v'chol hamarbeh, to expand, to increase, to go deeper, to mine, to excavate. So in some buildings, they have a lot of floors for the elevator to go up to, like to the 20th floor. And there might also be floors way below the lobby. Could be like minus 15 stories down. And I think that's what Rabbi Soloveitchik would like us to do. Go to minus 15 and really feel the story. Feel it's our story. Didn't just happen to them 3,000 blob years ago. This is us. This is happening today. Slavery to freedom. This is us. We cherish it. And he wants us to probe. He wants us to interpret. And the bottom line is, are you ready for this? All in one night here in Israel. Good luck. He would like us to have a feeling of ecstasy, a feeling of romance, a feeling of attracting God's Shekhinah, God's presence, to the level that we're so consumed with the story, its beauty, its truth, God's miracles, his personal supervision over anything and everything. We are so consumed with it that all we want to do is sing. We just want to sing. And of course, we do sing a lot during the Passover holiday, but during the Pesach Seder. Anyway, there's more to say about that, but I want to be sensitive to the time in order that we can finish, hopefully, perhaps in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Now we go to the 4 children. We usually call them the 4 sons, but it's really the 4 children. You know, if you only have girls, you're not going to say the part of the 4 sons. It's really addressing education from the parents to the children. And when that is done at the Seder, it's a very successful Seder. When the kids get it, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, when they get it, that's a very important thing. The other thing that I failed to mention is Rabbi Soloveitchik, he didn't put it this way, but I'll put it this way. He says, at the Seder, when you have an aha moment, now I get it. That's worth the entire Seder. Doesn't mean that if you have your aha moment at minute 7, you just go straight to the meal. I don't think he meant that. But that's the way I would put it. When you have your aha moment, have many, but just one breakthrough from all the sameness of all the other years. One, as they say in Yiddish, one vort, one teaching, one thought that inspires you and moves you and makes you feel like this was worth it. Rabbi Soloveitchik, I think, I can't speak for him, I think he would say, Yasher koach, kol hakavod, good job. You exactly got the point of the Seder. So now he goes to the four sons. There's a Chacham. One is wise, I guess. Rasha, the wicked. Tam, who is what? Simple, I guess. These are just plain meanings. We could delve into these for hours, which we're not going to do now, nor am I prepared for that. And the fourth son is called She'eno Yodea Lishol, the one who doesn't know how to ask a question. We should just know, by the way, that in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses, it never says the wise son says this, or the wicked son asks this, or the plain son asks that. There are 4 statements in the Torah that describe children asking their parents a question about this, and to each of those 4 statements, the rabbis ascribed a personality type. So I just wanted to mention that. People expect to turn the pages of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. Oh, let's see, where did the simple son say that? It doesn't say that. But again, there are 4 terms, there are 4 verses that say, and when your child shall ask, or something like that. The rabbis ascribed personality type children to each of those phrases. So now here's what Rabbi Soloveitchik wants to focus upon. And I love this teaching, and I hope you'll find great value in it. He says, and again, I'll shorten it because I'm looking at the time, and I'm hoping we still have people with us. There's no way for me to tell, but I'm here, so I'm going to talk to me, if that's all there is. Is that all there is? Peggy Lee, 19, you tell me. Okay, so Rabbi Soloveitchik is focusing on the fact of this Rasha. The Rasha is what we call the evil child, the wicked child, the Rasha, okay? So the Rasha says, whatever he says, Rabbi Soloveitchik is interested at the placement of the Rasha in the list. And why is he called a Rasha, which means wicked, and not called a Ra, bad? He's a bad child. Ra, oh, you are Ra, not so good. You shouldn't be Ra. Why isn't he called Ra? I mean, that's enough to call a child like that by such a name. Why is he called a Rasha? So this catches my attention every time, and I have to be honest, I love it. I love this teaching. He says, first of all, notice that the Rasha is placed between the Chacham and the Tam. So Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches, you know something? If you've got this kind of wicked, wiseacre kind of a child who is there, but you can tell by the posture and whatever the person is wearing, they have zero interest in being at the Seder. So he's interested in the fact that the Rasha, at least in the list, is placed between the wise and the simple. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, where do you think we would normally put the Rasha? How about child number 5? How about nowhere on the list? Who wants to deal with this child who's going to be grumbly and negative and asking all kinds of silly questions? And when is this thing over? When are we going to eat? You know, who needs that kind of a detail at your Seder? So the first thing that catches his attention is that the wicked child is placed between the smart one, the Chacham, and the Tam, the simple one. And he'll have something to say about that. And the second thing is, why is the Rasha called Rasha and not a Ra? Okay? So the difference between Ra and Rasha is the letter Shin. Shin. Okay? It's got 3 arms. 3 arms of the Shin. Not the best Shin I've ever made. Okay? But it's the letter Shin. That's the only difference between the word Ra and Rasha. In the middle of the word Rasha is the letter Shin in Hebrew. So what does Rabbi Soloveitchik teach? And again, I'm shortening this because I know people have no place to go and no people to see. But I'm shortening this because everybody has a certain amount of attention span. Thank you so much. He says, first of all, that he takes us back to the burning bush. And he says that Moses is in despair, that the slaves were not worthy of redemption. This is what Rabbi Soloveitchik describes. He didn't see anything in their behavior that warranted them leaving the slavery. So God appears to Moses in a burning bush, And the burning bush on the outside is cold and dark, like any thorn bush, like we've seen thorn bushes. But inside the thorn bush was a burning fire. And Rabbi Soloveitchik interprets that burning fire inside the burning bush, he interprets that as the yearning for God by the slaves. He is appearing in a bush with an internality, if you will, that matches the burning desire for God by the slaves. So you and I would say they were yearning for God? Were you kidding me? We learned that they were on the 49th level of impurity. What are you talking about? They were yearning for God. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says, yeah, they appeared like they were the 49th level of impurity, but covered up was their deep and burning desire to connect to God. And he says God appeared that way in the bush as a flame that was never extinguished, because he says deep in the heart of every Jew, no matter what that Jew looks like, they could even be the Rasha, they could even be the wicked son or the wicked daughter, that deep in the heart of that wicked person is a yearning and a burning desire to come close to God. How come we don't see it? Because it's covered up with all kinds of layers. You name it, whatever that layer is. But if you peel away all those layers, you're going to find a heart that desires and yearns for a connection with the Holy One, blessed be He. So, why is the Rasha placed in between the wise one and the simple child? Because we have to deal with this child. Rabbi Soloveitchik says you cannot marginalize this child. He's in the middle because we have answers for this child. Are they easy answers? You may have to scratch your head. Well, that's a good question. But we cannot ignore or marginalize or sideline this child. Because deep in this child, if we take note of him or her, deep within this child, we're going to, with attention and the proper words and even a little sympathy and empathy, we're going to be able to change the heart of this child and uncover the deep longing desire that Rabbi Soloveitchik says every human being has in terms of their desired relationship with the Holy One, blessed be He. So they may be a Rasha coming to the table, but if the Seder works in a way that's working for that child, they will come out a little bit softer. They will come out a little bit more understanding, a little bit more agreeable. Or sometimes with our girls, as they were growing up, I remember that we would try often to make a point about something, to teach a lesson about something. And when they got to the point where they would say, well, whatever, we always interpreted that as, oh, I think we penetrated something here. Well, whatever, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. There was no talk back at that. Well, whatever. So that's the way we always understood it. But that's the idea, says Rabbi Soloveitchik. Deal with the child. Deal with their question. Again, Israel, only one night. How much can you do in one night? But he says, deal with them. Deal with them later. Second day, third day of Passover, whenever. Don't marginalize and don't push this child to the side. They need the same attention as the nice, wise child that's so easy to raise. They never gave us a moment of problem in their life. Even the wicked child needs this kind of loving care and attention. So now the question is, why is this child called a Rasha and not just a Ra? So again, I bring my beautiful Shin. Okay? He says the Shin is a letter that has three arms reaching upward. Three arms reaching upward. And so in the middle of the Ra is the Shin, calling him a Rasha. But the middle of the Ra, in the middle of this bad child, is this Shin with three arms yearning upward. Three arms looking for spirituality. wanting spirituality, yearning for spirituality. And where it says, what do you do with the wicked child? It says in Hebrew, hakei et shinav, which literally could mean bash him in his teeth. What, you had to bring those questions to the Seder? Well, you couldn't dress appropriately? You couldn't look nicer? You had to bring those friends? No. Hakei et shinav means dislodge his shin. The shin that's in the middle of the word rasha. Dislodge it so that that child will experience a sense of elevation. Dislodge the shin. Address it. Remove that shin. What is the shin? Remove it so that the child can feel that sense of yearning and desire with God. By the way, I do counseling here in Israel. And one of the things, everybody's got different issues, different challenges, different problems, different, But one thing that connects as a thread, connects all clients. And I'm going to speak for every psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker, anybody who's in the healthcare field dealing with people and their personal issues. I'm going to say that the one thread that goes through all of the clients is that they're all craving for love and attention. That's my opinion, and by gum, I'm sticking to it. They all crave that love and attention. So, okay, let me go to perhaps maybe the second to the last teaching. Rabbi Soloveitchik wants to know, why do we have the egg on the table? Why do we have the egg on the table? And this is no joke. I'm being very serious now. I got this message from Al Buman. He's a wonderful man, came to our Seder for many years. Why the egg? Why do we have the egg? So there are a few given reasons that we hear all the time at the Seder. On Pesach, there was what we call the Korban Pesach, the Passover sacrifice, which is symbolized by the shank bone, where we give shanks to God many times during the Seder. But not only that, there was also a holiday sacrifice beyond that. Every holiday had its own holiday sacrifice. So our sages understand that this egg is a symbol of the holiday sacrifice. Another reason it's given quite often is that the egg resembles the Jewish people. Wow. Tell me how. Okay, I'll tell you now that you asked. How does it resemble the Jewish people? You must have heard this 100 times. What happens with an egg when you boil it? The more you boil it, right? It's sitting there in a little pan, all the little bubbles. And the more you boil it, what would you expect it to do? I'll tell you what, explode. I would expect it to splatter all over the walls. I would expect that at least, I don't know, would disintegrate, break into pieces. But it doesn't. The more heat that the egg gets, the harder it becomes. It's the difference between a soft-boiled egg and a hard-boiled egg. So when you have the egg, the more pressure, the more you boil it, the harder the environment, the stronger it becomes. And so many of our sages say that is reminiscent of the Jewish people. The tougher it is out there, the more hatred that is flung against the Jewish people. There's no shortage of that today. The more hatred, etc., the more anti-Semitism. What does it do? It tends to bring us together. It makes us harder. It makes us harder and more resilient. And it makes us want to stick around. It makes us not want to be soft and disintegrate and disappear. So that could be another reason for the egg. A third reason that's given for the egg is because it just so happens, and it might take too long to get into this now, but I'll just give you the gist of it. It so happens that the egg, or Passover, whatever day of the week Passover falls on, this week, let's say it's falling on a Thursday, Wednesday night Thursday. If Passover is on a Thursday, the day of Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, that commemorates the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem and many, many other calamities. If the first day of Passover is a Thursday, Tisha B'Av is on a Thursday. So whatever day of the week Passover is on the first day, is also the exact day of the week as Tisha B'Av of that year. I don't need a calendar. I know that's the way it's constructed. What's that got to do with anything? Well, an egg is often a symbol of mourning. You find that in Shiva houses that we can't go to nowadays. All kinds of round things, chickpeas, other things. And so the egg has become a symbol of mourning. So just as Tisha B'Av will be the exact same day of the week as the first day of Pesach, we have the egg to commemorate the mourning with which the first day of Passover is always connected, namely the day of the week that Tisha B'Av will fall on. Rabbi Soloveitchik expanded this, and the first time I read it, it was just an amazing, amazing teaching. And we may end with this. I may end with a prayer, so just stick around. By the way, to all who have been around, and I don't know, I don't have the mechanism yet. This is my first Facebook Live. I don't have the mechanism to find out who's leaving comments, who's leaving. I don't know. But anyway, here's what Rabbi Soloveitchik said. He said that in the Torah, in Genesis, there was a prediction by God that there will be a period of 400 years that the Jewish people will experience various levels of slavery. The hardest part is the 210 years of the 400 years. And then after that, they will leave with great wealth. So the Haggadah says that God, Chishev et haketz, he said 400 years, but even when he said that, he was able to imagine and thought of the fact that because 210 years were such an enslavement, that will be enough of the 400 years. So Chishev et haketz means he was able to imagine the future or the end. And the numerology of the word Kates is 190. Kuf is 100, Tzadi is 90, 100. When he spoke of the 400, he already knew that 190 would be taken away from the 400, leaving the 210 years of slavery. They enslaved them so badly, so despicably, so evilly, so harshly, that the 210 was like 400. And so God took away 190 years. So here's Rabbi Soloveitchik's teaching. With this, we will end the teachings. I'll have a prayer regarding the virus, and with that, we will wish each other a good day, a good night, and a Chag Sameach. Rabbi Soloveitchik says, you know, these 190 years, they didn't just disappear. Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches, it's a very solemn teaching, actually. Rabbi Soloveitchik teaches that these 190 years were sprinkled across Jewish history. They didn't just disappear. They had to go somewhere. Thank you for not asking me why. This is Rabbi Soloveitchik's teaching. Those years, those 190 years had to be sprinkled. They were distributed over the rest of Jewish history, sprinkled across the centuries and the millennia. So those people at the time of the slavery and the Exodus, they did not have to do those 190 years. But lo and behold, even if we know a smidge, a slice of our Jewish history, we know how true that rest of the 190 years, how true it has been in our Jewish history. Sprinkled over. So thank you for not asking me the question, where are we now? Here is 2020, 5780. Where are we? Are we done with 190? Is Mashiach coming before Pesach, after Pesach? What's happening? Are we in year 180 of the 190? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who does know. I don't know. But this was Rabbi Soloveitchik's teaching of the egg. The egg reminds us that those 190 years of travail and hardship, backbreaking work, enslavement, anti-Semitism, they did not end, but they were sprinkled across Jewish history and a symbol of mourning for all the people that have suffered. Throughout our history, we have the egg. Wow. Anyway, I don't know if you've ever heard that. If you did, let me know. We don't have much more time, but I will say this. In the very beginning, I mentioned my relationship with Rabbi Soloveitchik. I used to have about 200 books signed by their author. Nice. Some very well known, some nobody knows them. I have a book here that was signed by Rabbi Soloveitchik. This is my prized possession. When we made Aliyah, we didn't have a whole lot of room, so I left a lot of those books behind. But I have here about, I don't know, 25, 30. But of all of them, all the 200, this is the prized possession for me, a book signed by the Rav, Rabbi Joseph B. Soloveitchik of blessed memory. So I wanted to show you that. I also want to show you, before I do our closing prayer, this is a Haggadah that was written by a good friend of mine who lives here in Jerusalem, lives here in Israel. His name is Rabbi Aaron Goldscheider, and he wrote a Haggadah called The Night That Unites. I've been using this Haggadah for many years. The reason I'm showing it to you, I used to have 150 different Haggadahs. Now I have about 50. Anyway, what makes this so special? In this Haggadah, he quotes teachings from three great personalities: Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, Rabbi Kook, Rav Kook, and Rabbi Soloveitchik. And each teaching is headed by words in a different color. So, for example, if you wanted to, one Seder, use only the teachings of Rabbi Soloveitchik, you would go to all the blue headed comments or whatever it is in there. If you wanted Rav Kook's, you could go to all the green ones. Anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful Haggadah, and in this Haggadah you can find even more of Rav Soloveitchik's teachings on the Seder, etc. I recommend that to you highly. And now, dear friends, again, thank you for joining me tonight. Again, I don't know who, what, where, I'll find out later. But whoever joined us tonight, we have a mini community, even though we're isolated. We were joined by an interest, a curiosity. Maybe you tuned in just to see, what does he look like now? Is he still smiling? Yes, even with the virus. There's still so much to be grateful for, and we're sorry for people who have not made it, unfortunately. Anyway, before wishing you a Chag Sameach and a happy and a joyous Passover, here's a prayer I wrote for caretakers, but really it could be applicable to anyone. And it starts, Dear God, a terrible virus has come into this world, causing illness and death, causing fear and dread, causing massive separations from colleagues and friends, families and loved ones. Many are in a panic as they wonder how long. Many are unsettled as they wonder, why this? Many are beside themselves, wondering, why me? Why him or her? Indeed, why anyone? All are united in prayer for the sick. All are united in fellowship and desire to help those in need. All are united in hoping and praying that this pandemic come to an end quickly and mercifully. All are united in wishing condolences to bereaved families. Heavenly Father, Avinu Shebashamayim, be our strength, our hope, our guide. Give us the patience to endure, the resolve to continue with enthusiasm, even while challenges can deplete us. Give our doctors and our nurses and healthcare practitioners skilled hands, compassionate hearts to tend to those in need. Grant to us and to all service providers the ability to shepherd our clients and their families in love and with honor, in sickness and in health, as we all say, Amen. Dear friends, thank you again for joining us. God willing, next week, 8 p.m. here in Israel time, 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon, next Sunday. I'll be sharing some personal anecdotes when I was in aid with Rabbi Soloveitchik. So thank you again for being here tonight. Chag Sameach, have a happy and joyous and wonderful Passover. And thank you so much for being with us. Shalom. Click OK.